everyone, and welcome to today's video. So today I want to talk a little bit about home recording. I've had a lot of questions on Instagram recently, either from people looking to get started recording at home or people asking about what setup I'm using. And generally I'll kind of vary my setup based on what it is I'm recording for, whether it's a guitar demo or a video or a track or something like that. So what I wanted to do was show a few examples of setups I've used in the past and that I continue to use. And I'm going to do this on a kind of tiered budget level, so I'll start off a bit lower and work upwards. In the comments section, I'll be putting a brief description of each recording rig along with a timestamp, so if there's anything you want to skip ahead to, you can do so. And I'll have some playing examples so we can hear what each one sounds like. So the first recording setup I want to talk about that I've used in the past is this. So this is a multi-effects board. This one's a Zoom G5, and it's not specifically this unit I want to talk about, rather than multi-effects boards in general. So these are, it's all modelling technology in there, so you've got amp tones, you've got pedal tones, and tuners, that kind of thing. So it's a very kind of early, well, this one's an early version. I guess it's an entry-level version of something like an Axe-Fx or a Kemper. So really useful if you're recording at home, particularly if you want to use something you can use live as well. So you can run this DI, you would just run one lead in and then send another lead or one or two leads out to your interface, depending whether you want to record in mono or stereo. I'm not going to talk about interface in this video because that's a whole other video topic in itself, but very intuitive to use, and you get a lot of options to start off with. Some examples of where I've used this in the past: I filmed my first probably 150 Instagram videos with this, something about that number, and I also played on a similar number of musical theatre shows with it. And for anyone doing theatre shows, I would recommend a unit like this because, above all, they're reliable. There's very few kind of problem points. So on a pedal board, obviously you've got all your patch cables, any one individual pedal could go wrong. With this, it's just one lead in, one lead out kind of thing. Very easy to troubleshoot, and the reason that's such a priority on musicals is because it's such a regimented format of performance. So the cast are interacting with what the band are doing. There's very little room for technical problems, and there are contingency plans in place, but you don't want to be the one that necessitates a show stop like that. So a really useful tool in that respect. You've got a lot of turns available, and a good chance that there won't be any kind of technical hiccups from the start to the end of the show. Another thing to consider as well is that from an audience perspective, if they're there to watch a musical, they're generally there to see the show as a whole, and they'll probably have 90% of their attention on the cast. They're not really going to be bothered whether your guitar tone is coming from a vintage Marshall or a unit like this. So I would put reliability as the kind of highest priority in that scenario. So next up now, I want to talk about plugins. So plugins are essentially software versions of, well, you can have them for just about anything you can think of musically. So there's choral packs, there's orchestral packs. From a guitarist point of view though, we've got Neural DSP, a big one, STL Tones, Mercurial's another. I use Bias FX2, and they all do similar kind of things. It's all kind of a preference thing. And you can usually kind of access them on a tiered level. So I think Bias do like a standard, a pro, and an elite, and you get more options with each one. And most of the companies will have something like that in place, and you can expand and you can kind of use combinations of different plugins. Where I would use plugins is anytime I do a guitar demo, I tend to use them as I'm usually facing away from my speakers because I want to be forward facing the camera, so I don't get the best tonal representation. So I want something that I can record with and get a decent tone that feels good to play with while I'm filming the demo, but if when I go to mix it the tone's not what I thought it was, I can go back in and edit it later on. I'll also use them anytime I'm writing and I want to keep up a workflow. I want to be able to just pull up a tone, record a part, move on, record the next part, and then if I want to go back and assess and maybe tweak tones at the end of the writing session, I can do. So the next setup that I want to talk about is the pedal board that I filmed with a couple of months ago. So I'll have a link to that somewhere on the screen now. And this was the kind of Strymon Iridium travel stroke practice stroke home recording board, and I geared this around tones that I enjoy using in my own music. So it doesn't have the biggest variety of tones on there, so I probably wouldn't use it if I was recording anything for a client or like a remote session, anything like that. I'd use this if I was coming up with ideas for my own tracks, or if I just wanted to practice at home and maybe record the practice session. The facilitator of this board is the Iridium by Strymon, and I really rate that product. I don't have any affiliation with Strymon, but for me, I tend to gravitate more towards amps than kind of modelers, or I just don't generally have the patience when it comes to the programming side of things. So the Iridium to me kind of did the modeling side of things whilst feeling like an amp. I kind of suffer from option paralysis. If I'm presented with 300 cab IRs, I'll always be wondering if there's one better than the one I'm using. So I like that there's only 3 amp voicings and 3 variations in cab on them, because I kind of trust all of them to sound good, and I know that I can get a good tone without kind of having to cycle through lots of different patches for my own satisfaction, I guess. So that's what I'd use that board for, is kind of coming up with ideas for my own music. So the last thing now, I want to have a look at the amp setup that I normally use, and this is, hence why I've reorientated the camera, this is what I will use for if I'm recording something that's going to go on a final track, be it something of my own or for a client. So I've got the Blackstar Artist 15 at the bottom, I've got the Mesa Boogie F50 above that, and then on top I've got the Victory V40 Duchess head. So the Blackstar's kind of in charge of the voxy tones. The Mesa Boogie I bought to do the high gain stuff, although the clean channel on this is a really nice clean channel. I didn't know a whole lot about Mesa Boogie at the time, and having done some research on the website, this seems to be one of the their kind of really well voiced clean amps, as well as having a really good high gain channel. And then the Victory V40, this is like a single channel pedal platform, really nice clean tone to mid-level gain breakup on there. And this is the one I'll tend to use for my own recordings as like the lead tone, if I want a kind of consistent tone across a few tracks. So when I get around to doing the next album, that will be the one I'll be using for all the lead voicings on there. I've got the speakers bypassed in the Mesa Boogie and the Blackstar, and these are running through the Capture X. Obviously there's no speaker to bypass in this is just a reactive load box in that instance. There's a few reasons for that. It gives me a bit more versatility with the cab IRs that I can load into here. It also means I don't have to set up any microphones, because I probably get string noise bleed with the room being so small. But also it means I can stay friends with my neighbours and not damage my hearing, as this amp especially is very loud. So that's the kind of amp setup recording I would use. So hopefully that's highlighted a few different ways you can get results recording at home, and shown a few different kind of setups you could use depending on what scenario you find yourself recording in. If anyone's got any questions though, let me know in the comment section, or you can send me a message at James Frankland Guitar on Instagram. If you did enjoy the video, please do like and subscribe, and as always, a big thank you for watching. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.